I have a crazy question. I mean, I'm wondering if any bakers or chefs have queries about how the different things we're looking at in duct tape. Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, there's already plenty on this thing. Are wondering how these considerations that we're talking about in the field manifest in the kitchen. I don't know if anyone can jump in on that. You're mainly the field guy. You got any kitchen people? I know Guy Frankel hangs out with Kandarian a lot. I wonder if he's noticed anything there. Monica Spiller would have a great answer to this question.
Yeah, there's plenty of people on here that need to like chime in with that one.
All right, I'm gonna let that linger. Let's go around the other side.
Okay. Can you repeat the question, please?
Repeat the question. So my question was for anyone who's more on the baking and kitchen side of grain. Oh yeah, they couldn't hear it. Would you repeat it for me?
Oh, sure. So anyone who has experience in the kitchen, like actually hands-on experience with grain.
End user, as we call them.
Yeah, the end user. There you go. Who's got experience with grain and they know their source. Have you been able to tell any differences in farming techniques on flavor and on performance in the kitchen?
Strength or springer?
Any ties between the field and the loaf?
Sure. Frankel's saying sure. You want to chat? Like wine. Also yours. Yeah, NASA.
I don't mind to say 2 words on the subject if you want, Leyna.
I'm gonna let you climb up while I let Frankel talk. Go ahead. Dana Morgan. Oh, we're getting great yeses. Yeah, go ahead. Let's not turn it on yet. I want to let them talk to each other for a sec. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have a very extensive relationship with Larry, but I've also been using Nate's grains for years when it was Fat Uncle and the latest crop and Tehachapi and TNAs. And obviously you can totally you can totally tell, I know which even a Brutzi rye was grown by who, because now we have several growers. And more than that, within the same growers, different crops, different years will be of different quality. And sometimes if I see, a year that I like, I try to stock up on that crop because there's no guarantee that the same farmer on the same plot is going to give me the same result next year. So it's consistency is not really why we're in this game, right? So definitely variance is what you get on the other side of that.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Massa.
Sprinkle out.
I love the idea, Massa. You lived both in California and in Georgia, or baker in both places. What's your thinking? You're not muted, but I don't hear you. Massa, we're not hearing you. Now you're muted. Now you're unmuted. Your AirPods aren't working. Sorry, doll. Yeah, wait. I want to come back to you though, because I want to hear what you're saying. Ian, you were chiming in. You want to say something?
Yeah, just from a baking perspective, I mean, I would just echo what Guy said. That yeah, I mean, it's it's very obvious the difference between whole grain and a lot of the kind of my first experience in California grains was some of the Tehachapi grains that you pour Rojo that Adam had grown up in Tehachapi, and I mean, it's just astonishing the difference, right? And I think one of the things we'll see a lot, and you see up there in Tehachapi, when we're dry farming grains in California, it's just gonna more even than or as much as how much rain falls from year to year. It's like when the rain falls. Like the rain felt like last year we got 14 inches around here, and in Camarillo, and it was like, but it was in 4 big storms, right? They were very late and it was very concentrated, and like that's going to have an effect on the growing, and that's going to have an effect on protein, and it's going to have an effect on flavor, and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, and I just the last thing that the guy was saying right before he signed off was that we're not in this game for consistency, right? And I think that is like when you first say that to people, they're going to think that that is a liability, but really like that variability is really part of the beauty, I think, of grains in California. And, you know, like you made a comparison in the chat to wine, like, you know, knowing if you approach grain products with the knowledge of like where they're coming from, and that they're coming from, you know, a variety of growers who are facing a variety of different types of inputs on their grain, and then it goes from being, we have this idea that grain should be this uniform thing, right? As like we as Americans, right? That like white flour is white flour. But you go into it knowing that like it's this huge, complex, beautiful set of varietals, and you know, I think there's a huge opportunity for us and for that small and mid-sized market to really have an impact. You know, so it's exciting stuff.
I love what you're saying, and I want to hear from Nick. I'm going to try something. I'm going to see if I can back up far enough that you guys can give us a visual in the field while we're discussing this, because I have a few answers. So I'm just going to try to see if I can get far enough that we're still getting sound while they're going to drive the combine so you guys can see it in the field. Nick, you were answering from the UK. I like this kind of specific set of variables you're talking about. That you're talking about observing the same varietal on different farms and seeing that behave differently. That, I'm gonna put my headphones in so that's clear. Give me 1 second to get my headphones in. And Nick, you're muted.
I don't think we'll be able to hear it with that.
All right, let's try that. Nick, do we got you?
Hiya.
Okay, perfect. So,
It's both of us. It's Nick and Helen, but it's Nick's account.
oh, brilliant. Okay, hi. So you're Helen then?
I'm
Hi,
Helen.
Nick and Helen. Yeah. Thanks for
Thanks so much for doing this. It's working really well. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for the feedback. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Tell us what you're alluding to in the chat.
Well, yeah, we have a friend called Mahala. She's a professional baker, and we're really interested together. We grow like a different amounts of very small amount of different heritage grains on the farm where I work, which is actually a vegetable CSA, but we do it on the side. And Mahala's always really interested in older varieties and actually tasting them and baking up. Either we do biscuit tests, which are quite quick and good for small amounts, right? Or we do like more, like she's a sourdough baker, so she'll make, you know, whole loaves or half loaves, and we can really like test them. She's got all these flavor wheels that she's developed to actually help you describe the flavor, because yeah, I'm sure maybe some of you guys are into it and you can, you know, think of ways to describe the flavor of the bread, but it's really helpful what she's done, like, you know, molassesy or malty or like zesty or fruity, you know, things that you, coffee, you know, and then she's got like a chart for doing the crumb and the crust. And yeah, we try and sort of study different grains, varieties that we're into. Is like, my favorite personally is Maris Widgeon, that was bred in Cambridge at Plant Breeding Institute. And I think it's a really nutty flavour. Like I can taste the difference between that and other kind of more modern wheats. We generally do like a bit of modern wheat in with the heritage, just to sort of like taste the difference between. Because we're always interested in like, can you make a better sourdough out? Is the bran more fermentable in heritage in grains that have got a bigger bran? Or yeah, what are the differences? I don't know, I'm just rambling now. Have you got anything to add?
Great feedback, thank you. So I'm a little slow to the party, and I just figured I could mute myself. Duh. NASA, are your AirPods working? Nope, they're not. Boo. Okay, keep working on it. Hang on. Oh, Dana, what were you saying?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. I just wanted to unmute me. So, you know, I love just this discussion. You know, we tried to have taste tests with different varieties of wheat, and we found that most people couldn't determine the differences in tastes. I love the flavor wheel idea that she just talked about. Helena, is that what her name? That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great idea. You know, I think we need to educate people about the difference in flavors in these heritage grains. You know, as bakers, we can often taste these differences, but I think the general public needs to have more experience with different grains. I know things are moving in the right direction. So getting these variety grains out there is absolutely fantastic. I love events like this. Thank you for making this happen, Leyna.
Oh yeah, definitely a team effort, but I'm really glad you could join. You're a super knowledgeable person on this. And Dana Morgan is a baker based in LA. Do you want to say anything about your
Well,
you or about that?
and a grain grower. I'm an urban grain grower and educator and master gardener and a beekeeper. So doing a lot of things because I'm retired, as you know. That's it.
Fabulous. Okay, thanks, Dana. Hey guys, I figured I could mute myself, so this is working pretty well, actually. It's embarrassing that took a minute. Anyone else want to speak to that topic at all? It's a pretty good one.
Can you hear me now, Leyna?
Yes, NASA, you're back.
Yay!
You are back. All right, I'm going to just flip around so you guys see me now. Go ahead.
So yeah,
I'll unplug this so you can hear the speakers.
yeah, I'm in Atlanta now, and we do have a farmer down here in Georgia who's creating a variety of local grains, and he has a hard red that's 100% unsifted, and I've been working with. And it's so amazing how different it tastes from all of the California grains. And I think someone was talking about a flavor wheel. If they could write in the chat more about that, because that was really interesting, because I myself am having trouble describing why does it taste so different, the flavor of grains here. And I brought back with me like 30 pounds. Well, I moved across the country and I put 30 pounds of flour in my car and whatever else could fit, because I wanted to take California with me.
And it's
And
a small car, so I'm just...
It is a small car.
And you mainly took flour. Okay.
Yeah, I mainly took flour. But it's funny, somebody was also mentioning, I believe just for me, that it's, you know, people need to know the difference between white flour and whole grain flour. And I've been experimenting a lot and sharing with my roommates. And sometimes they say, I don't taste the difference. And I'm like, really? You really? How do you not taste? So they just need more exposure, because everything kind of tastes like whole grain to them or whole wheat. But they can tell the difference between whole grain and what they buy in the store. Like that's complete, that once they've tasted that, that just kind of opens their mind a lot.
Neat. Michael Calanti writes about the taste wheel. Okay, is there a link someone could put in there? Carol got some spelt from New Orleans. Were you there, or how did you come into that spelt?
Michael Calanti.
Yeah, here, you look it up. Any other feedback on this topic? I think, no rush, but I think Nate and Bekki, you guys might have something to show us, or are you just being pretty? I mean, it is a very, very good accessory.
So there's a PDF, Leyna. It's called, it's Michael Calanti, who's a sourdough or a baking author. And he released something called Flavor Wheel for Bread, which offers, and perhaps that's where the English baker was inspired by. He has it in his book, How to Bake Bread.
Jonathan is putting the link up here while you're talking. Great.
Do you see it, or do you need to copy paste it?
Jonathan's put it there.
Oh, perfect. So yeah, so I'm done talking then. There it is. Enjoy.
Cool. Yeah, cool. There's the PDF. Leia, can you chime in and pronounce your name properly and tell us where you are? I'm sorry, I should have been having people do this all along. Leah, where are you chiming in from?
Hi, hello.
Hi, I'm looking for you.
Let me see if I can start my video. Hello.
Yeah, I don't have that setting on, so we're scrolling. Keep going.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you. We just can't see you, but I'm gonna fix that. You talk.
That's fine. You're winning. So I'm in Toronto, Canada. And I just wanted to say my background's more in wine. I've just started baking, but I'm really interested in this tasting, and I can kind of hear that there's a consensus that people need a little more education when it comes to learning the differences. And when tasting these things, if you do have contact with the public while you're selling or distribution, a really good thing is to do taste comparisons. So bring in the versions you want them to compare to, or something more generic, something more store-bought, and it gives a great jumping off point, because just by itself, a lot of people might say, just like in red wines, oh, I can't taste the difference between this and the one I had last week, you know, but side by side, it becomes quite clear, and I think it cements it in people's heads a lot. But I totally agree with what everyone's saying here, and the embracing of inconsistency and diversity, and bringing back of these older grains, and the fact that we kind of do have to think about food as a vintage, and it's not meant to come back consistently every season. It's for the best.
Thank you, Leah. Now, really, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Leah, that's right.
Not far from mine. So are you a home baker, or is this your profession?
I'm a home baker. I actually was working front of house in a bakery, and that's how I got interested. So we were doing sourdough baking, and you know, during the pandemic, what better time to start doing it at home? So I've started getting into it and trying to find heritage grains here in Toronto. So it's become quite interesting to me. I'm diving deep.
Spectacular. I see a lot of great stuff happening in the chat. We talked about the researcher people could not taste the difference. That sounds anecdotal. I'm hearing from you, I'm hearing from Massa, I'm hearing from Dana Morgan, that anecdotally people have had this experience where folks around them weren't having a very sophisticated grain palate. Is that
Was Dana saying that? Because I couldn't see the video at the time. Yeah, I've never experienced anything like this. But Dana, was this just different varieties of red wheat, or are you talking about wheat versus heritage grains, for example?
No, it was different varieties of red wheat that we tested.
Okay, so
yeah,
that makes more sense.
Yeah, so they couldn't tell the differences, and you know, it just all just tasted like whole wheat bread to them, and people couldn't tell the differences, and we asked them to describe that they did not have sophisticated palates. They liked the breads very much, but it was a very successful event. They loved eating it,
Sure.
but you know,
But you weren't saying that they confused spelt with einkorn or
no,
corazon with...
No.
Okay.
The horror,
Thank you.
Franco.
What?
The horror.
No, I was like, what are they talking about? Obviously, there's a difference in all of these. But yeah, if you get to specifically Yakora versus Patwin, I can understand that you need a more sophisticated palate for that. Sure. Thank you, Dana, for clarifying.
You bet. You bet.
Yeah, thanks, you guys. This is great feedback. I'm wondering, is there, you know, I know a lot of folks in this group, but definitely not everyone. Is there anyone who's a grower of other crops who's been curious about learning more about grain? I'm not sure we've heard from a lot of growers in general, because most of them are probably busy in the field and are going to watch the recording, but do chime in if I'd love to hear from growers in general, or as I said, growers of other crops. How about anyone in malting or brewing or distilling? All right, well, do chime in. I'd be curious to hear from a few different kind of textures of experiences with grain. Are there any other questions as we're moving along in general? I'm doing a little check-in here. Felicity Murphy, it's lovely to see you. Hi. Aww. Any other topics that folks are hoping to hear about. I have some things I'm going to address, but I just want to see what's happening out there in terms of random questions, baking, growing, anything. All right. Oh yeah, what do we got? How can we get more grain growers? I know. I don't know. Does anyone have any ideas? It's not easy. Go ahead, Nate. Come in a little closer.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that this co-op, the equipment co-op, helps some people get into grain growing. You know, we'll be utilizing this thing within a 200-mile radius of here, and I think that there's some ideas up in Oregon and some other countries as well. But if you can take care of some of these basic bottlenecks like the equipment, the cleaning, storage, then that helps out a lot. Obviously, there's already a lot of places have robust farmers markets. There's really great support for local bakers. Obviously, those all need to be improved, but there are some pretty critical bottlenecks in equipment and logistical bottlenecks that we, as established growers, or all of you in this group too, who are already kind of in the know, can jump in and support your local farmer to hopefully encourage them to expand their operations logistically through some cooperative models, or expand the services that they would offer to adjacent growers. Maybe your local vegetable grower could do a cover crop of einkorn this year. If they had a combine or a place to store it, that might be more viable.
I love that. Yeah, and it's certainly one of grain is so complex, and certainly if there's limited infrastructure as a grower, it makes it challenging. So that's certainly something that Nate has been working hard on, that I'm trying to get involved in, that others on this call are really working on manifesting solutions. But part of, I think both of our kind of philosophy on that is that's part of holding space like this, and part of actually really intentionally and really we're very grateful that Bekki was willing to be the guinea pig or whatever, get up there, that we are trying to facilitate these conversations and be at least what we can do, welcoming humans, even though the lay of the land is complex. All right, we've got a lot of good stuff in the chat, so I'm going to turn to some of this. Land, yes, thank you, Massa. Yeah, land. Got any thoughts on that? Besides, it's super complex, especially in California. It's very challenging.
It is challenging. Leasing land isn't as hard as you would think. Buying land is almost impossible, especially if you don't have $1 million sitting in your back pocket somewhere. But leasing isn't impossible. And it's actually a great way to get into farming. Just a little plug for grain growing is that.
Yeah, say something about your experience. It's helpful.
Yeah, we started. We still don't own any land, but we're farming a few hundred acres now because if you don't have irrigation, it's quote unquote not viable farmland. But it's fine for grains. Grains. Humans have been farming grains without irrigation for tens of thousands of years. So this stuff is totally happy to grow in the very driest of climates, with absolutely zero irrigation. So if you've got some crazy out of school college kid who wants to give grain farming a try, I mean, it's not impossible to get a hold of some land, even here in high rent California.
Yeah, really important. California Farm Link, what's that?
Yeah, most of the states have a Farm Link organization. They're nonprofit organizations that focus on giving new and beginning farmers access to land. So,
were you going to say something? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, cool. Yeah, California Farm Link. Okay. Okay, so Lisa had a couple of good specific questions. She was asking about yields, which varies quite a bit, but we can talk about yield on this field. Nate can tell you a little about that. And she also wants to know, how long does it take from seed to harvest, and is dry farming slower?
dry farming is not slower. If we irrigated this, it would be the same amount of time. It's temperature and daylight specific more than water specific. In fact, in its suboptimal conditions, it might even be faster to dry farm. At any rate, it's about the same amount of time. In California, we're mostly harvesting in July, almost no matter when you plant it and how you put it. The yields can be a lot different.
Yeah, do you want to? So we're in this polycrop oat field, and Nate, I think, can tell you something about the yield here, and maybe you could throw out some comparisons from other fields that you've grown.
Sure. Polycrops have been our most productive yield-wise because you're filling in different niches in the photosynthetic strata, so they're capturing more sunlight, and also the root structures are fairly differentiated as well. At any rate, this is about 3,000 pounds per acre. That's been similar in our other.
Oh, the sound's not too good. Why don't you get? You know what? I'm gonna get out of here so I can get in better with the sound.
Sure.
All right, let's try this. Thanks for the feedback. It's really helpful. Go ahead.
So the polycrops here in California, this is a dry farm field. Previous dry farm fields have yielded 2,000 to 3,000 pounds per acre. On monocrop, it's been as low as 500 pounds per acre for a dry farm situation. But if you're farming in an area that gets summer rain, or if you're irrigating in the summer and you're doing a monocrop, you might get a much higher yield. Probably several tons per acre is not outside of the norm.
Right.
Yeah.
And Aislinn, just to piggyback on that, Aislinn was asking how dry farming works. I bet that's a quick one.
Yeah, it's really quick. You just plant it in the spring or in the fall, depending on what your seasons are like. And then in the summer, you come back and harvest it. So you don't have to irrigate. You don't potentially have to till if you're doing no-till. You don't have to do any weeding. It's just plant and harvest for a very simple no-till dry farm scenario.
Leyna's asking an interesting question, which is there any government help to promote the planting of more heritage grains? Which she says is a very Canadian question, but it's just a really decent question, actually.
Oh, Monica Spiller would probably be.
I keep nagging her to chime in.
Yeah. So go on to the. If Monica doesn't chime in, all of you guys go on to the Whole Grain Connection website. She does a lot of advocacy work. There are no programs that I know of. In fact, most of them are the opposite of that. It would be programs that support large monocrops. So the crop protection programs, things like that, are geared towards large acreage, high input, high yield crops, but low quality and low nutrient density.
Thanks. Yeah, if someone's got someone could help me out and put the Wheat Connection website in the chat, that'd be a big help. Daniel's saying dry farming partially depends upon timing crop with respect to precipitation schedule as well as seed planting depth. Yeah. Daniel, where are you joining us from? Are you a farmer?
I am joining you from my home in Goleta.
Oh, super.
Oh, Daniel is a farmer. One of my favorites.
Oh, you guys know each other, huh?
I do. Yeah, he's one of my oldest buddies from around the Central Coast.
Sweet. I'll put this so you guys can see each other. Yeah. What were you? Where'd he go? Sorry. Oh, there he is, buddy. Daniel, you want to finish your thought? Oh. Sorry.
Well, the only real thought behind that is there are more crops than just grains that are being dry farmed. Peppers, melons, tomatoes, those are all things where if you don't have the money or the means for irrigation, you can try to time it right. And that's partially based on Farmer's Almanac and partially based on what it looks like in real life with the weather.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah.
So you're, Danny or Nate, will you tell us what kind of stuff Danny's grown, what he's up to?
Yeah, Danny's grown a little bit of everything. He has a little paradise in his backyard of like every imaginable fruit and veggie. And he's right, the dry farming is really, any of you guys that have tried it at the farmer's market or in your backyard, dry farming is tricky, but man, the flavor is just another world, absolutely another world. And I feel like the same is the case with the grains, but like people were pointing out, it's, you know, people just haven't developed a palate for that for the most part. But once again, some bakers like Mark Sandler, Carlos Enriquez, people who are using these heritage grains, you know, they've really begun to explore how to bring out these flavors that have been lost to us for a few generations.
Claudia was chiming in. Claudia, do you want to actually talk, or shall I? UC Davis, yeah, is doing a lot of good work. They're testing heritage grain varieties and other non-proprietary varieties under the organic system. Sorry, do you want to say anything more about that, Claudia? Or frankly, we'd love to hear from you in general if you're up to it.
Yeah, that's actually a new program that UC Davis is being supported by what they call a SCOPE program. And Alison Creel Brown, she actually used to work in Illinois, and she was hired, to work with the plant breeder. And she took on this new project to work with organic grain growers, and not only with wheat, but they have a lot of other grains. And they have been doing these small trials at the student farm for now. I think it's going to be a third year trials. And that's very exciting. I think they are all being funded by USDA grants. So I believe that they might talk about if they got funded for this next cycle. But so far, they have been very supportive on the efforts. And then we have done the quality testing on these varieties. This will be our, again, our third year doing the variety quality testing here at our lab. So yeah, I mean, USDA is supporting these, and UC Davis as a land grant institution is supporting research on these older varieties that bring a lot of diversity that has been lost. And that's one of the biggest reasons too, that they bring the variety and diversity that we have lost because of those modern varieties might not have. But these older varieties have, their resistance to certain disease, they're drought tolerant, they have root. I mean, I'm not an expert, but this is what I've learned. They have a root system that is different, that they're more resilient. So all these things are very important for a breeding program. And that's why, another reason why UC Davis is getting into testing all these varieties. So that's very exciting. Mm-hmm.
Really exciting. That's great information.
That's amazing that UC. And Allison does really good stuff, and I would encourage everyone to check out the small grain website that she maintains, and the field days, which obviously aren't happening right now. They do an annual field day, and this was going to be the first year, right, Claudia, that they did the organic field day?
Yeah, this was going to be the year, and we were going to have the very first organic grains field day. So we hope to have it next year. And we hope to have all of you guys there next year. So
yeah, it's going to be awesome. Next year's going to rock.
Next year's going to rock. But although, you know what? Look, we have people today from Toronto, from the UK. I know we've got a guy in Australia. Ian, if you want to say hi, we'd love to hear from Australia. I don't know if he's still here. This is a really tough emotional roller coaster, and really tragic things are happening, but I'm really personally enjoying the cross-border, cross-sector collaboration that's being enabled by the Zoom. Although Zoom is evil. It's really just video, and they're good at the technology.
Hey, Leyna, people can come out here and visit our farm. Social distancing is super easy. Phil McGrath is a wonderful guest. You guys can come out and pick your own pumpkins. You can, right on the ground that you guys saw, come out in 2 months, come visit us in Camarillo and get some pumpkins out here.
That's a great, okay, so maybe I'll stay for a minute. I'll talk about some follow-up that's going to happen here. And I'm going to revisit some announcements I made at the beginning, because we've had comings and goings. At the end of this, I'm going to reach out to everyone about a few things, and I'll blind carbon copy you, so I'm not going to out you about your email address. but I'm going to ask you to opt in to sharing your contact information because I can see it's happening in the chat. What's really great is, yeah, as I was saying, build this moment to, I always compare the small grains movement to like a school of fish. We really need each other a little extra. We really need to support each other and learn from one another. So the fact that we have this very interesting motley crew here, let's look at each other's projects and exchange best practices and be in touch. So that's kind of my plug too. I hope when I reach out to you, you'll sign off for me to share your information. Thank you, Claudia, for putting that in the chat. And I will do things like I'll send links to the farm where we are right now, to Rodale. Oh, go ahead, Nate.
Aren't we also doing something for equipment sharing too? Is that going to be coming up in the? Is that part of your announcement stuff? Sorry,
no, don't tease. No thunder. So we are, as we've been talking about a lot, this equipment sharing is really important to us and to farmers in general. And Nate and I are in particular really facilitating dialogue amongst grain growers in this state to make this happen. And there are a number of different solutions that we're talking about. And we are going to book a virtual session that's devoted to this topic of, yeah, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, well, I've been mentioning it a few times,
yeah.
but just to, I think that
you gotta talk up.
Oh, right. There's an opportunity for citizens, for end users to jump in and kind of build their own movement here, and we're really hoping to figure out what are the pieces of equipment, where can they come from, what are the pieces of the logistical pieces, and how can people, with really tangibly support that construction of the missing pieces.
Yeah, and on that, it's important to me to talk a little bit specifically about a project Claudia Carter and the Wheat Commission are taking up that's really important. You feel free to jump in if you want to talk about it, but I'll just start talking about it, Claudia. The Wheat Commission, yeah, thanks to everyone who is having to go. It's great, you'll hear from me. The Wheat Commission has taken the really important step of assigning funding to a web tool that's going to connect all of the grain stakeholders in California. That's the Wheat Commission's obviously scope, but I think even for those of you outside of the California borders, this is something to pay attention to because many of our small agricultural economies really need better communication and better cooperation. And we feel that this web tool is offering the potential to lubricate the communication between. One of the things is like flat out expand markets for our farmers so that people know who's growing what and where. Our farmers need to be in better touch with each other to find out who has what seed or to borrow equipment. There's so many things that we need to be talking about more that we could be doing better that would help grow this movement if we use the technology. And I grew up in Silicon Valley. I don't know. I just think maybe the technology could help us, please, a little. So the Wheat Commission, there aren't a lot of entities that have really taken up this simple but complex task of using the technology to help the different stakeholders succeed. Yeah, so that's my plug, is that if you're a stakeholder in this grain economy, they're trying to launch by August. It's really ambitious. They've got a great web design firm behind them. If you're one of the stakeholders, I just really can't emphasize enough that we need you to fill out the surveys that the Wheat Commission is floating out there so that we can list individual entities and companies and really build out a robust tool. It's only as robust as the content is that we fill out. Thanks. Ian, were you our Australian? I think he was. He's saying goodbye to us. Okay, are there other thoughts from you?
No, thank you guys all for coming and watching us play with the combine. You guys are all now certified combine operators. Just get out there and hop on your combines and get it done.
Okay, I'm just making sure we didn't miss anything. Contacts. Okay. Did anyone else have a question, a comment, something they want to plug here in the chat, a project? Thanks, Aislinn. I'm leaving space for shameless plugs. You put your name out there if you're doing a green thing you want people to know about. Thanks for joining us from the main Rodale campus, Tammy, and I think others. Let's see if hey, do you have any, Bekki or Ariana, do you have any last questions, comments, anything? Will you come close? Let's stall for a second so they can come up with the last question. Go ahead, what you got?
I was going to say that the one thing that you really have to pay attention to if you're going to learn to drive a combine, I would say after 5 minutes, is the level, how high and how low that sickle bar is, because that controls how much material, grain, is going through the machine. And that seems like it's important so that you are actually harvesting something and you're also not getting your machine gummed up. And that seems like the thing that I would really be working on.
Cool, that's so helpful.
That's what I came away with.
That's really helpful. Ariana, do you have any closing things? Or just
I think it was great to have this vintage piece of equipment in the field. I think we should reevaluate all the equipment that are in the barns for the small areas that, you know, big equipment is not probably worthy to move around. So even also because they're old, they're probably easier for whoever is expert, not for me, to fix it and work on it compared to a last brand new piece of equipment. So I think we should look in our barns and see if we can find something that we can share with the rest of the farmers.
We've got a combine.
The combine or any other piece of equipment. I mean,
planters and everything.
tractors.
All right, is that it? All right, peanut gallery, nothing? Kelly, Brennan, I was like, seriously, I've been doing like 20 decades, 20 of them. All right, guys, we're signing off unless you got something, but you know how to reach us. Don't be a stranger.